Hello.
Hello,
Good,
everybody. Magnificent Monday.
good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for another rollicking show of the Cash Out on Cannabis series. My name is Eric Foster, and usually Simone gets us started up and brings the fire and brings the funk to get us going. But I guess today I got to do a little bit of that. So I'm going to try to do my best, Simone. But we got Simone here, my road dog, my partner in crime, and my financial guru who knows more about the finance side of public policy than I do. Y'all think I know a lot about policy, but she teaches me stuff a lot. So, see, money, you on mute. Come on, get off of mute.
Oh, I'm on mute. Okay. Well,
Now, we hear you
first of
now.
all, I was actually looking for the questions. I was looking for the questions, so that was a big thing. I'm still looking for the questions. I'm trying to get it together. Okay. So,
Okay.
how's everybody doing? I'm off mute. How's everybody doing?
Doing good, doing good. And we have a special guest today here with us. We have LaKisha. Come, good Lord,
Camese.
LaKisha.
I know, listen, I've been called everything from Chinese to cashmere. I don't see an H in there, but it's okay.
Okay, okay. You pronounce your name just so that we get it properly right and correct, and don't make any errors or abuses of the name.
It's LaKisha Camese.
LaKisha Camese. All right, LaKisha Camese, who is does few roles with us at M for MM. But LaKisha, I'll let you give the background of who you are, what it is that you do for us, and then we will jump into our show today. And I'll give everybody some background on that after you give your background.
Awesome. Hi, I'm LaKisha Camese. I currently serve as M for MM's program director for the Project Clean Slate program, and that is on cannabis expungements and wraparound services. So I'll give you a little background about me first. I am a graduate of
I
the
think Eric froze up.
Eric. Did you freeze?
Keisha?
No, I'm
No.
still here. Y'all can hear me?
Yes, you guys froze up, but can everybody hear me?
Right.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you still.
Okay. Because I know I got a strong signal in here because I plugged myself in. But
Oh,
all
you
right.
froze.
So Keisha or Eric, want to start to get started or what? What
Yes,
we
Yeah,
I'm.
doing?
yeah.
I'm
LaKisha
just
was
doing a little
giving her
background.
background.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Awesome. So I graduated from the Southern University Law Center, but prior to doing that, I served as a DNA paralegal for Dallas County Public Defender's Office, and we did post conviction exonerations. These are the people who never should have been in prison, who DNA evidence came along 20, 30 odd years later and exonerated them. And also, if they had any witnesses that recanted on their case that said, hey, I initially told the police that this person did it, but I was under some pressure, some duress from someone else, and it wasn't true. So that person is now released. So we did God's work, as I say, setting the captives free. And after that role, I went to Southern University Law Center. I say Southern University, so nice. Did it twice. Did it for my undergrad at SUNO, that's Southern University at New Orleans, and then graduated law school here in Baton Rouge. During that time, I got introduced to M for MM through a medical marijuana class that I took as an elective, and it just blew my mind, the background and the history regarding marijuana in this country. So after that, I was able to get an internship, paying internship with one of the dispensaries here in Louisiana. And I worked there for several years. And I got to see the whole process. So everything from the seeds coming from Southern University, coming to that vendor, being planted, being the nutrients put in, and just those variations all the way to trimming, And I tell you, they need to pay trimmers way more because it's a mind-numbing thing to sit there and just clip off all this stuff. So the packaging, doing the cartridges, and then moving into flowers. So I got to touch every bit of that aspect of that business. I got to do the inventory, help with finance, did HR. So we did a lot of hiring in the name of diversity, making sure that we've gotten every area covered for DEI. So I was happy to be on there to, while in that role, hire 1/3 of their workforce, most of whom are still there, and just, play my role. So ever since then, kept growing with M for MM. I was their secretary at the Law Center and then became their president prior to graduation, moved into the role of HBCU fellow, and now here I am doing expungement. So I pretty much have M for MM probably tattooed on me somewhere, but I'm not going to say where.
So, in a nutshell, you've been doing a lot out here in these streets on this particular topic and issue, which is good.
Right. Advocacy, yes, lots of advocacy.
All right. So, C Money, give us a background. What are we here for today? And have the esteemed LaKisha here to discuss and talk through.
All right. Well, today we are going to be talking about expungement, which in a lot of cases is considered social justice. And as you guys know, I don't talk about nothing that I don't know about, right? I kind of stay in my lane. So that is one of the reasons why we invited Keisha to come in, because it was a really big thing. I think social economics, social equity, social impact, and social justice are all a part of this total fight, right? Political policy, it all wraps up into one. And so we wanted to really kind of go into where the experts could talk, not just on what rules and regulations and statutes and policies and laws need to be changed, but what kind of rights do you have as being a convicted misdemeanor or a felon, what these new laws are for you, and then as a citizen, what you can do to help these laws be changed and be effective. Right? So we're going to start. You guys have heard of expungement. I'm sure everybody. No, not everybody. Some people may not have.
That's right. Some people may not know. Because
some people might not have.
Until I started rocking with M for MM.
Yep. So leave that one up, Danny. Hey, Danny, I'm going to read that in a minute. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is, let's start from the bottom. Why don't you guys explain what expungement is? And we have a program here at MM Slate, which Miss LaKisha is the godmother of. That's her baby. She loves it to death. She's the national program director for that. So Keisha, you want to tell us what expungement is?
Okay, so it's called many things. It depends on your state, and just as varying and wide-ranging are our cannabis laws, since of course it's not federally legal yet. It varies from state to state what it's called. Some states call it expungement. In some states also call it record sealing. And there's a big difference in both of those, right? Expungement is simply taking that record and destroying it completely. That means it never existed. If I would go, I'll give the example of Dallas County. You can go on the public website, you can type in somebody's name, and you can look and see what charges they may have or what charges are against them, any closed files, any of that. With expungement, that is taken out of the record. No one can see it on that end. No one can see it on the back end as far as any public defenders, any DAs. It's as if that crime did not happen in your lifetime. So it's hidden away. But record sealing is a little different, okay? So record sealing is where they take it and they hide it from the public view. That means if anybody goes and do a background check for you with work, they may not initially see it, but however, this is where the caveat is. If you get in trouble again or you reoffend for something similar along those lines or any criminal charges, the DA and the prosecutor can go back there and say, hey, I see that this person still has his old charge from 2013. We've sealed it, but it's kind of like setting it aside in case we need to criminalize you again in the future, which is arbitrarily wrong. It's like bringing up your past. So let's get that straight first. So that's at all times we try to push for expungement. And I know Eric knows this as well, as when we're talking about from a policy standpoint, if we're trying to get legislation passed, we want automatic expungement, not automatic record sealing, because that record sealing piece means that it has the potential to come back and harm them in the future.
Yes, and to that point, just so that everybody is fully aware and understanding, there is no national program. So people may think that, hey, it's legal and probably it's something handled federally. Each state by state, you have to understand the laws within each of your individual states for what can be expunged and what the background is. So, from a public policy vantage point, right now, it is a hodgepodge. It is more diverse than I'm not going to say it's more diverse than the NHL, but it is definitely more diverse. And the NHL is getting more diverse nowadays because,
Well, hold on, Eric, because I was going to bring to our next question.
Okay.
Well, hold on, Eric, because that was going to be our next question.
Okay.
Just hold on. So our next question is going to be, are the expungement laws the same in every state? And if you could break that down, because I think that's where you were going, but I wanted you to kind of break that down to everyone, because, as we know, one of the big things is cannabis laws, we know, are not the same in every state. It's kind of like a snowflake.
Yes.
It isn't, doesn't look the same in every municipality, right? You can see the difference from block to block, but definitely from state to state. So what does that look like when we're talking about expungement?
Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up. So I'll give you the example of different places that we've went and did expungement clinics. Let's use Arizona. Arizona has a record sealing process, and they say that you have to do all of your charges. They'll do a seal on it, and that's that setting aside process. So it may not appear in that background check, but it is something that, anyone within that legal community could still look up and see what's happening. As far as, I'll give the example, we recently were in Baltimore, Maryland. Shout out to Urban Reads. Thank you so much. We were just there doing an expungement clinic on February 25th. And their laws are a little different in that they do have a bit of expungement language in dealing with their cannabis industry. However, you do still have to petition it. Most places aren't automatic. You have to petition it. The offense or the conviction that you have to be more than 3 or 4 years old, depending on what type of offense. And then also you have to not have any pending charges against you. One of our folks that came to the clinic, it looked as if, because they were stacking the charges, that this person was still on paper, as they put it. But we were able to follow that paper trail and say, okay, this person did not, they completed all their probation and paid their fines. They're technically off paper, so they can apply and get that petition done. Then there are different things, like I'll give you Pennsylvania. They say you got to apply for like a clemency, from a partner, a clemency from their state's government. And it varies in that way from different states. So it's a hodgepodge. In whatever state that you're in, you have to know the laws. Also, it depends on what it is. I'll give you Florida. Florida has a one-time rule for one charge. So say you get picked up, you get convicted, you get charged for having cannabis, and you have a gun. We can only do 1 or 2 of those things, right? And I would tell you, get that gun charge off. More importantly, especially if you're not trying to go into the cannabis industry after this is off your record, get that gun charge off, because it's more serious. But Florida has that one and done, just one time, one charge for your entire life. So if you have 5 charges, 3 to 5 charges, you only have one that you can get off your record. And that's where we're going to recommend, hey, I know you want this cannabis charge off, but you might want to go ahead and get that gun charge off. And that's going to benefit you more in the long run. And we have to make those kind of decisions because unfortunately, when you leave it up to the states, it's completely up to their discretion. And that's my little plug for telling people, hold your legislators accountable. Make sure you're putting people in office who are going to benefit your interests. So definitely, it
And if I
varies.
can,
LaKisha? Oh, I'm sorry. One
LaKisha,
quick question. Oh, go ahead,
chime in.
Eric.
So if I could chime in on that too,
Eric,
because
go ahead.
there's somebody from Ohio that's asking some questions. So take Ohio as a good example. So right now, Ohio does not have any law that specifically provides authority for
Eric,
expungements. Can y'all hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. So Ohio has no specific law that provides for expungements. You can do record sealing in the state of Ohio, but as it relates to expungements, expungements aren't legal in the state of Ohio. There's no specific statute that governs or allows for expungements. Know that the mayor of Cleveland is looking to do some things in that area, but this is where municipal law runs up against state law, because if the state does not have a law that covers it and allows for you to do it, you can't do it at the local level. Give a couple of other two quick examples. Alaska is a state that is a dual market state, but Alaska does not allow expungements. They also don't have a law for expungements. And Arkansas is a medical marijuana legal state, but they don't have a law for expungements. And even their record sealing law is extremely limited. So, yes, each of these states are definitely wild and diverse in terms of what they do. Some of them want to treat you like the blind headed kid at the black, brown, red headed, and bald headed family reunion. And some of them will let you into the cookout, the real cookout, not the cookout before the cookout. It let you in the real cookout and get you back into your community. So it really is, unfortunately, a hodgepodge on the policy side. That's one of the things that we try to work to do, is to address this in policy, especially on the cannabis side. Get these states to have some structure that's consistent state by state.
Well, let me ask you this, Eric, and then I'm going to shoot over to Keisha. So, as you got a chance to kind of speak on what was going on in Ohio and even kind of pinpointed the Cleveland mayor, but what can other mayors and others that they could be able to jump on creating expungement relief for their on the city level? So, in the on the municipality level, one thing that I'll say. In Muskegon, in my small town, they're looking to do have funds for expungement clinics, and so we're looking to participate. My company is looking to participate in that. But what other things outside of that can other
So great
local
questions.
or municipalities or mayors do to try to jump on that?
So great question. So guys, first off, for that local mayor, it really ties into what are the state statutory laws. So they need to work with us at M4MM or work with community justice advocates to understand that, along with their legal department. And I'm sure if they've got a good city attorney or legal department, they can understand what the laws are in those particular states. Then, based on that, then they can set up programs for what is legal. So let's go back to Ohio. Expungements are not something that's legal in the state of Ohio. You can't just expunge and remove a record, but you can do record sealing. And so, from the vantage point of being a mayor, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Columbus, etc., you can do programs to bring people together to help them understand and do those sorts of record sealing request so you can get them started on the path. That's really one of the best things that municipalities can do across not only this part, but also when it comes to licensing or employment in the cannabis industry or supply diversity in the cannabis industry. They can use their resources to bring people to events at their locations, either city hall or other buildings, and help people understand the process, give them information, have partners that come in and help walk through the process to file the paperwork. So they've got to leverage what they have. They have buildings, they have space, and they have the ability to provide free information. And that's huge if they're willing to take those steps. If they're in a state that does allow expungements, they can go further. But if it only allows record sealing, well, that doesn't mean you can't do that. You can do that too.
Absolutely. And thank you, Eric.
Throw the ball over to Keisha. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm gonna throw the ball over to
thank
Keisha.
you for talking about that, because with the pardons, everyone's saying, oh, Biden fairly pardoned. If you look at the stats on that, there are absolutely no one in prison right now for a simple possession charge of marijuana for federally wise. So it basically was just something that did no purpose. It serves no purpose. However, those who may have federal marijuana simple possession charges that are still haunting them, they may be able to get that off their record is wiped off. However, from state to state, it varies. I would say that some of the best states that we have with cannabis automatic expungement processes is like California or Connecticut, Illinois, Missouri, New Mexico, Rhode Island, Vermont. And I have to give a shout out to New Jersey as well, because although we have to file that petition, it's going to automatically be taken off. And we can see just the progress. I'll give a shout out to our brother Tahir, who just recently is opening Simply Pure in Trenton. And he was someone who was formerly incarcerated that was charged, that had these charges following him. He was able to get that off his record and now participate in this industry. So, and I have to be transparent with everyone. Expungement is, once you file your petition, it's not automatic. It's not like, oh, okay, they got it in there. I did the application online. First of all, 9 times out of 10, it's not online. We have to fill out this petition. We sometimes have to have it notarized. We have to have an attorney put their bar roll on there, and they have to fill out everything. We have to send it in. And then there's a waiting process. Now, if everything is good, gravy, we've got the green light, the sun, the moon, the stars have aligned, then we can get this done in like a month. However, a lot of times what we're seeing is that it takes up to 12 months. And that could be because of backlogs and dockets in the court systems, or it's just something that most municipalities take it as, oh, we'll get to it, we'll get there. So it's very important for everyone to know that this is a process that it takes. That's why we're so adamant here at M4MM about getting that automatic expungement language put in as soon as a state goes online for either medical or recreational use of marijuana, because then once you have that in, we can get that process started faster and get this off the records faster. Now, in addition to doing those expungements, we have a myriad of wraparound services. A lot of times people don't realize how much incarceration or a conviction impacts your life. With the exception, I believe, of Vermont, and Eric, tell me the other state. I know you probably know, but your voting rights are taken away, stripped away from you as soon as you are incarcerated. And so you have to reapply for that. You have to fill out the application. A lot of people don't realize I have to re-register to vote. You also have to be off paper, as they say, like pay all your court fines and fees or whatever's are out there, and you don't have any pending probation obligations on you. So that has to be taken care of. Also, we provide community resource lists because a lot of people need assistance with finding housing, resources for getting their resume done, a closed closet, even if they need to get some governmental
Mhm.
assistance until they can be that productive citizen again. Those are all things that we provide to aid anyone who comes to our expungement clinics. So just know that we do know that I see here in the chat, okay, yeah, there is an application that is open for federal pardons per normal last week. But again, there's not a lot of people federal time for simple possession. It's basically something that's more lip service. But each state,
Well,
they have to be
let,
ones that are proactive on this. So I tell people, get with your legislators, get to know those stakeholders like your mayors, your governors, hold them accountable and say, hey, this is what's needed in my community because it has impacted this person even after they've been charged, even after they've served their time or paid their debt to society. But they need to be fully whole and restored now that it's legal and, everyone else is profiting from this.
what I do want to say though, before we, because a lot of criticism has come to the Biden administration, and here's a Eric Foster educational moment. So I want to give y'all an educational moment. A president only has certain enumerated constitutionally and statutorily enumerated powers. The presidency does not have this grandiose power with regards to the expansiveness of pardons and expungements that people were hoping for. What the
Mhm.
Biden administration did is specifically what legally they can do. Anything
Absolutely.
else is illegal. Now, because the previous administration, the orange terrorist leader retiree in Florida, liked to break the laws by doing executive orders that weren't legal, it
Hmm.
gives people an impression that, well, can Biden just do that? No, because it's okay to follow the law. And so, guys, just to be real, he followed the law and the rules that he has the authority to do. So, if you
Absolutely.
want change there, and this comes back to LaKisha's point, at the state level and the federal level, you've got to support and elect people who actually see this as important. You've
Hmm.
got people who, like the guy that runs Florida, Little DeSantis, and in some of these other states, who don't see social justice as something that's good. They see it as pro crime or some boogeyman to use against people. If you vote for them and still want them to do something on social justice, you are butting your head up against a brick wall and it's not going to work. You've got to make those changes. And then at the local level, you still have to, in expungements, LaKisha, tell me if it's correct, you still have to go through the court system
Hmm.
as the main part of that. So a mayor or a county exec or can't just grant by fiat an
Right.
expungement, neither can a governor. It still has to go through the court process at the state level and at the local level and county level. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's absolutely right. So you have to make sure that you're watching your state legislation every single time it's in session. I tell people, I said, get with those people. First of all, know where you vote, right? Know where you're registered to vote. Know who your representatives are, who your legislators are. And I will tell you, I am still registered to vote in the state of Texas, in Dallas. I was a Senate delegate for district number 23. I was a deputy register. I registered folks to vote. I went ahead and, worked the polls for elections, anything that I needed to do. A lot of people that I have as colleagues and friends in a great legal network in Dallas came from working on their campaigns because I believed in their initiative. I believed in what they were standing for and the change and the difference that they're bringing to that county. And so working with those folks and learning, hey, what's your stance on this? Is this going to make it better for my area? And I know a lot of people are like, how do I have time to do this? However, it makes it easier to hold those folks accountable saying, hey, You're in here. You ran on the promise that marijuana was important to you, that getting these expungements are important to you, and seeing how people are being criminalized even after they're served their debt. And we're going to hold you to it, hold them responsible. So it does take a while to get this done, but definitely you have to have the code written up. I would say here in Louisiana, the revised statutes for the criminal code have to be revised to say, hey, we now do automatic expungements. It's for this or for that. Some places are doing decriminalization. Now, I'll tell you about that on the local level. New Orleans has decriminalized marijuana. Now, what that does is you no longer, if you get caught, say you have, I believe it's 14 grams or less of flower or cartridge or whatever you have your type of cannabis, and you're caught with this, they're no longer going to put it on your criminal record. What they're doing is they're going to give you a civil citation, similar to like a speeding ticket or, something along those lines. What that does, it does save money on the state level. And we always have to approach this to how it's going to be beneficial to the government. And working with Dallas County is usually the cheapest proposer or contractor, usually wins. And that's how it is for governments, because they're trying to cut costs as much as possible. So that cuts costs all throughout our legal system. That means that police no longer has to take that person down to the police station, and then they don't have to expend funds at their jail holding that person until they can see a magistrate judge, and then they don't have to have that person housed until they can get a hearing. So all of those things are alleviated. That means that person is no longer worried about, I'm stuck in here, I don't have money, because it's essentially a debtor's prison at that point. I don't have money to post bail, and I'm going to lose my job because I can't get a hold of them. I had my one phone call, I called my family, I didn't get a chance to call my job. I didn't get a chance to call an attorney. So, it's one of those situations where you're alleviating all of that. You're doing as a civil citation. Do we want anyone to have this on their record? But I'd rather have it as a speeding ticket than have it as a criminal thing that's going to follow them forever. So even if your states do not have that expungement and that record sealing in place, start off with, let's decriminalize this. And this will save money on your end for your municipality.
I do want to chime in on that though point. You have to be mindful within each state, because if the state has not legalized the dynamic of possession not being a crime across the state, when that municipality does it, be mindful. Don't think that that is automatically a free ticket, because if you're stopped by, say, state police in that state, it's still a felony or a misdemeanor depending upon the quantity you have. So be mindful of that. One other quick thing too, on the aspect of voting and the rights that voting in terms of a conviction. So Alabama, Delaware, Florida, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Nebraska, Rhode Island, South Dakota, Tennessee, and Virginia, and Wyoming. Crimes can either permanently disqualify you from being able to vote, which would have to be reversed by the governor's pardon or approval of the state legislature, or you have to request your right to vote to be restored formally after completion of felony conviction and felony sentence and probation. Two states that your voting right is never infringed upon: Maine and Vermont. So even if you are a felon in Maine and Vermont, and if you think about it, the right to vote, which has never been formally tied to citizenship the way it needs to be, the ability to play with the right to vote based on criminal offense is what allows states to play with the access to vote based upon that patchwork federally. And so that's why some states you have more rights to vote, other states you have less. but this is an issue of social justice, and Tim has been a great contributor. Ohio, unfortunately, they elected a senator who's anti social justice, anti criminal justice reform, JD Vance, anti any of the things that we're trying to do. Guys in Ohio, y'all got to get it together. Stop electing people like that. You ain't gonna be able to go talk to him and convince him to change his mind. That'd be like me going back to the second ex-wife and asking her, Jackie, do you want to take me back? Can we get back together? That ain't happening. I can fool myself every day and 5 times on Sunday and think it's gonna happen, but please,
I
it
can't take you nowhere. I just can't take you nowhere. I can't take you nowhere.
Eric has a good point. He has a very good point, because if you look at it also on the back end, because I tell people Republicans, they play the long game. And if you have these people who are incarcerated for a myriad of charges, that they can use that to boost their population, send more of their legislators to Congress. And I mean, it's just a whole big old caveat. So you've got to be very careful and mindful of who you are voting for and what they stand for. And also another wraparound service that we have is that for VA, for veterans. A lot of times if they are a veteran, their benefits will get cut off while they serve that time. And then after their conviction, once they're off paper, they have to apply to get that reinstated.
So, real quick, we've talked about what we can do on the federal level. We've talked about what we can do on the state level. We've also talked about what we can do on the city or the municipalities level. But I think it's really, really important for us to discuss what all stakeholders need to be doing, right? Not just the citizens and the consumers, but everybody that's playing in the game. We know that skin in the game, but let's talk about the big boys, right? The people that's actually paying into a lot of these pockets, the MSOs, the multi-state operators. What can they do to make some things right? We know that, what was it? When we first came out, what was it? 3 years ago, the song was social equity, social equity, social equity. That was the buzzword everywhere we went. Now this year, it's DEI, 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 diversity, equity, and inclusion. What next year's buzzword is going to be. I told Eric next year, I'm Michael Bivins. It's gonna be this ain't my year. This ain't my year right now. But I'm gonna be Michael Bivins next year. It's gonna be social economics. Y'all watch. This ain't my year, but next year is my year. So I'm already knowing that that's gonna be what it's gonna be next year. But what I would say is, what do you think that they could be doing right now to help us with social justice?
So I'm gonna call them by their government name, the corporate community in cannabis, because they're corporations basically. The corporate community in cannabis and in other industries needs to, one, stop funding the anti-criminal and social justice and restorative justice people, and put their money where their mouth is. Don't say that because of the George Floyd murder, Breonna Taylor, and other murders of African Americans, or Carlos, I think it was the same week after George Floyd, a similar murder of a Hispanic gentleman in California happened by police. Don't sit there and say that when these things happen to the African American community or Hispanic community or Native American community that you're ready to go for being an ally, and then you don't follow through. You as a corporation have to be willing to put your skin in the game, your money to support these efforts, be a partner to fund these programs for expungement, record sealing, and other social justice reforms. Help support local, county, state initiatives, either lobbying for legislative change or ballot proposals where you can have citizen driven referendums to change laws. Put money into organizations that are going to support, and also put money into elected officials that are going to support these changes. Here's the reality. We're not going back to the 1890s. this country is diverse, and this country has a whole lot of things that it needs to fix to be a better place. The corporate community has to step up, and don't worry about if Fox News and the conservative mainstream media calls you out and attacks you and all that other stuff. Let them. As my grandma Foster used to always say, when you doing when if nobody's attacking you, then you ain't doing something right. When somebody's attacking you, then that means you're doing things the right way. And that's okay. Don't get scared out here. Can't be scared. Scared money don't make no money. And you're going to make a whole lot more money with the growing diversity of America versus being scared with that small pot that says, don't get involved in social justice. Don't help these people. It's their fault. They just need to be better. Really? Come on, people.
Well, I think it's more. A few years ago, I believe, like an executive at Coca-Cola said something about they're going to review their vendors, they're going to review those people that they contract with, and they have an obligation to make sure that they're also contracting with X amount or a certain percentage of DEI, and also women-owned businesses and BIPOC businesses. So and their goal is aggressive, is to say by maybe 2030 they want to have about 50% of their senior leadership to be women or minorities, and a combination of both. And that's definitely something where you have to say, we're going to hold your feet to the fire, because everyone who comes to the table has to agree with this for our ESGs. And putting out those impact reports and saying, hey, the first time you sit down with a company, let me see your impact report. Let me see what you're doing to make this community better. So yeah, definitely holding them accountable, just like you do your legislators.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they got to get off the snide and get in this game. So that's what I would say in summation is be about it. Don't talk about it. If you
Right.
really care about the 160 million non-white Americans in this country who, because of the unresolved systemic problems that we've had, don't have the same access or have impediments that slow them down. And despite the lies, talking about it doesn't make you say that you're victim blaming or that you're making African Americans or other people of color regress in their efforts. No, we've had to overcome despite the challenges, and we still will keep overcoming despite the challenges. But damn it, help take the challenges off for the future. Come on, people.
All right, so we're wrapping up a little bit, but one of the things that I want both of you guys to chime in, and I'm going to give you 2.5 minutes. What I want you guys both to end though, what would you say is the biggest misconception that individuals have about expungement or social justice, and what's the correct answer, and what way from this program today? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So clear up the
You
biggest
go first.
misconception and give them a jewel to go home with, please.
The biggest myth is that to trust the government when they say we're doing automatic expungements, when they say we're going to automatically do it by a certain date. To me, I still want to hold them accountable. And I would say definitely people vote. Every single time, vote. Your voice means something. I know it seems like every time we turn around, there's an election, but every single time there's a prominent issue on the table. And all of these things, especially at the local level, I used to tell people all the time, I love me some Obama, but you know what? He wasn't going to make sure my garbage was picked up. So I need to make sure that everything is done here locally. And even wherever you live, I'd say I vote in Texas, but they were trying to pass a law here in Louisiana, and I got family here where they were going to give 17-year-olds criminal charges for possession of cannabis. Yes, it's illegal for them to have it under the age of 18, but don't start them off with a criminal record that's probably going to haunt them for the rest of their lives. But I did call that legislator up. I confirmed it. That bill did not pass. And just making sure that you're in the fight all the way.
So I'm gonna say the biggest misconception
Beautiful
out here.
and well spoken, and I hope everybody listened to that. Go ahead, Mister. Go ahead, Eric. Take it away.
So I'm gonna say that the biggest misconception out here is that social equity, racial inclusion, diversity, equity, and inclusion, corporate social responsibility, environmental sustainable governance, that all of these efforts somehow are anti-American, anti-people, are discriminatory and divide people. Guys, we've been divided ever since Adam and Eve ate that fruit and Adam threw Eve under the bus. So we're never going to be quote unquote perfectly unified.
Snitch. He's a snitch. He was
Yeah.
the first snitch.
Yeah, Adam was the first snitch. He didn't get no stitches, but he was snitching. So
Snitches get stitches and ditches, by the way.
Fortunately, Eve didn't kill him, or we would have really been messed up. But I say all that to say, guys, we need that. Those are just the realities of the different markets and different diverse segments of humanity. And supporting the fact that there are blind spots, gaps that exist that create barriers or make achievement worse and more difficult to get to is pro people. It's pro Christian, it's pro Jewish, it's pro Muslim, it's pro family, it's pro American, it's pro world, it's pro humanity. So don't let the smooth taste of some of these other folks fool you, because they fooling you out here in these streets. These efforts will help improve the economics of everybody. That's the way we need to go in. Getting people back so that they don't have a conviction that prevents them from restoring their economic path so they can become a homeowner. They can have money, disposable income to buy goods and services. Guys, that's helping everybody be better. So
Well,
don't
I just
let
want to
anybody
say
tell you that that's wrong.
two things, and then I know we're wrapping up. Thank you, Tim, for that wonderful thing about expunged and sealed cases are not safe havens. Again, that's one of those laws where Louisiana recently had one where they had to put it where you can't put someone's mugshot out, especially if they're not convicted as of yet. So just making sure that people, know that, not to be posting things on social media that are illegal. And the second thing, to touch on Eric's point, I think Brian Stevenson said it best. He heads up the Equal Justice Initiative, and that's the one who had the movie Mercy, that the opposite of poverty is not wealth, but it's justice.
Damn straight.
I totally agree. The biggest thing about poverty is lack of resources, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That access. That's right.
When we think about whether or not someone is convicted and what kind of time they
Mm-hmm.
get, it is due to resources, right? When we think about a lot of different things that the outcome becomes different between two people, it is due to resources, right? And so I totally agree. The difference between poverty is definitely, wealth, it is poverty. It's the difference between resources. So I will say that. Now, we are wrapping up. Want to know one thing is that all expungement clinics are not equal, right? There are going to be some that are going to be more robust than others. So when you go out to go and look for expungement clinics, I want to give you some tips and tools to be able to look for. One, you want to make sure that they have a proven track record of being able to get things expunged. You want to make sure that that this wasn't their first time at the rodeo. And then also want to make sure that they have a services that will be able to help you in addition to that. Now, if you are looking for that, we have one, and it goes all across the United States, and it's ran by Miss LaKisha. It is our Project Clean Slate. So it's probably coming to a state near you. Now, if you want to find out where we're going to be, you go to www.projectcleanslate.org, or you can go to the Minorities for Medical Marijuana page. And then there's a link that you can, she's coming to a city near you. Yeah, she's coming. So definitely, I love both of you guys. I love y'all so much. Keisha, thank you so much for being our special guest. You were amazing, girlfriend. And I'll call you. Today's Monday. We usually talk on Wednesday. I'll call you tomorrow. Oh, no, I got to call you tomorrow because we got stuff to do. So I'll call you tomorrow. I'm working all day today. So I'll call you tomorrow. I'll call you later.
All right, Sid.
All right. Bye, Miss Raj.
Thank you everybody for watching us today. This has been great.
I got a busy day. I love everybody. Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.